latest episode of the Elite Managers Gameworlds podcast. It's me today, Greg, the Real Madrid, Cape Town, Al Nassr, and Cardiff manager, and I'm joined by Division 4 Red Star Belgrade manager Okorie Joe, or as most of us know as Sir Joe. Hopefully, we'll have either Neri Babajide or maybe Fizz later on, but obviously they've not responded as of yet. Obviously, since the last recording, which was about 4 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, or 4 weeks ago, I should say. Obviously, there have been some changes. Obviously, maybe the off season. Obviously, the one main rule change that was introduced is we admins agreed for the main world that a transfer window sort of trade deadline were to be introduced, which would come in week 14. So that clubs in main world could only do deals between week 1 and 14, and then from 14 until the end of the season, there would be no deals allowed, or deals that were done would go through at the end of the season on the next season. Obviously, week 14 was chosen just because it's after the concerns update, so it gives managers time to sell players who were on level 2 concerns. And obviously, it'll prevent managed clubs who are in, for example, bigger clubs who are in had slow starts to the season and maybe in relegation fights from buying their way out of a relegation fight. Um, and i.e., the main example of that was obviously Wolves last year, and obviously Liverpool a few seasons back. Anything you want to opinion on regarding that trade deadline, Joe?
Okay. Um, about the deadlines, I think very needful. It was a very needful rule to come in place. Like you mentioned, we've seen so many managers towards the end on. I think they tried to bring in the big rated players, just to avoid the drop. And obviously, when they are done with that, you see them trying to move out those players again, and most times they struggle to move out the big ratings, especially those who are likely going to drop on the long term. So before you could tell, the clubs are stagnated with old rated players, and then it just goes back to home the club. So for me, I think it's a very good and thoughtful rule coming in place, and it's just going to make every manager to be serious from the first kickoff, from the first round of the season. You just know that you can't buy your way out. You just have to do your best. You just have to plan your team to fight from the first round and ensure that you are not in a position of fighting relegation towards the end of the season. So for me, it's a welcome one.
Yeah. Obviously, hopefully as well, and it has sort of done it as well, but by looking at transfers clubs have done in Division One today, it has sort of spiced the window up. You are seeing managers do more deals than previously. Um, Looking at Napoli have done about six or seven players in, whereas previously you'd be lucky if a club other than Gibril or yourself, Joe, or somebody or Pane would maybe be the only ones who would do loads of deals. You are seeing a few managers make some moves, i.e., maybe looking to try and get players in before the start of the season, so they're not having to buy during the season. So it has had an impact on the current transfer window in main world, and obviously if it's a success, we would look to maybe see if we can put it into MENA and Africa, and obviously any future side worlds that we bring in the next couple of seasons or couple of years. Sorry. Obviously, as well, there's been a few changes managerial wise. It is the 3rd of August, so obviously we had our obviously managerial changes just because every month when managers don't make criteria, they obviously if they do get sacked. But obviously as well because the end of the season was in the middle of at the start of July, we have seen some changes. So obviously the first one, the biggest one, obviously Joe's replacement at Barcelona, Neri. decided to seek a new challenge, or as some would say, run away. He quit or left Barcelona and headed to Bayer Leverkusen. That was Mary's first time in Division 3 for about 2.5 years, going back to 2021, since end of 2021, but he was actually in Division 3. It's quite a few years. And then obviously in his place was Babajide, who just pipped out James Young and Altamaz in the by the average chose Gide just because he'd done pretty well to get that Lazio team that Miracoleni left about a year ago. Um, that were dead to rights, kept them up, relegated me, and then spent a few years keeping them in the league each season. And obviously because of that, we felt he needed a bigger challenge, and he took the Barca job. Obviously, because of that, it triggered a bit of a domino effect. So obviously, James Young was offered the Lazio job, who was second in voting for the Barca job. He took that. It's just a natural progression upgrade from Porto. And then that meant obviously that Favour Akamadi, or as he's known on WhatsApp, LeBron, he moved to Porto from Leverkusen, which then meant Neri took Leverkusen. Obviously, James Young, as we'll mention a bit later, his final game as Porto manager was actually a Connect Cup final victory. So he's left Porto in with on a high. Obviously, it's meant that LeBron will have a EMG Champions Connect Cup spot next season, which I hope he's thanking James for. And then obviously in Division, the other move in Main World was on Thursday. Ben, who had been Lille manager since June, obviously he stood down just because he was he was asked to step down because he was below the 25 messages um, for the month, and in his place, just pipped out Joe, was I think it's Damien Cruz, or as he's known as I Am Cruz. He was at Sparta Prague in Division 4. Um, what I will, uh, you know, he's come in to this game role, and you can see he's really into it. He's coming flying. I mean, you don't see many people drop 200 odd messages in a month. Um, you know, it's you got to give the guy credit. We've had people who've taken had months in Division 4, and then he comes in, smashes it, and then obviously does a good job of Sparta as well, actually, and gets the Lille job, which is, I think, as we know, I think Joe probably knows this, even though he hasn't been in main world for a year. That's probably one of the hardest jobs in main world, just because obviously it's one of the smaller clubs, but obviously previous managers have gone for ratings over prospects, and a lot of those ratings have been hit by red arrows. And obviously, it's a bit of a rebuilding job that he needs to do. So I wish him good luck. And then obviously, finally, then Division 4 moves. Ben obviously took the Sparta job as the part of the job swap just mentioned. Peculiar, she got sacked from Swansea. Um, she also got sacked as well from Supersport in EMG Africa within 2 days. Effectively left both her EMG clubs. She did say she didn't really give a shit about EMG Africa in a bit more PG terms than that, but effectively it was that. And she also said, this was both in the Saharis Cup, that she didn't care about the messages and chose not to speak. Obviously, we are an interactive game world with minimum message criteria, so obviously that effectively meant that she was going to get sacked. So she got asked to step down. Bird's Eye View, who was previously Monaco and Frankfurt manager in the old D4, he returned after having about 6 weeks out with getting his phone sorted after he broke his phone. He returned last week and took Swansea job on Thursday. Obviously, knowing Bird's Eye, probably be up there with Joe and Thassareef for the messages. And he'll be competing to get a main world job again, I imagine. Celtic, Yaya Hersey, who is a friend of Jabril's from Somalia. He's Beta Jerusalem and Amazulu manager in EMG Africa and MENA. He got sacked. He didn't actually message the group last month, so obviously, you know that managers don't message a group aren't going to last long. Obviously, so he got sacked, and in his place came Michael Uwameni or Mike Uwameni. He's a friend of Gift, come from Facebook, um, known as an SM tactician. So it'll be interesting to see what he does. And obviously, if he's active, could be one that potentially contends for main world jobs. Obviously, depending how he adjusts to the game world. And then finally, Shakhtar Roshan, who's been very successful in MENA with Shabab Al Ahly, but been Shakhtar the next manager in D4 and was doing pretty well. Was Joe's main contender for D4. He got asked to step down. He only provided message to group once last month. He did mention obviously he's had some personal life issues that have popped up, but obviously his previous messages he was just keeping his job just, and it felt that it wasn't the ideal time by the looks of it for him to be in the game world. So it was best for him to step down, and obviously we don't actually have a manager for Shakhtar at the moment. It's actually Neri in charge of them as a caretaker, admin type appointment. Obviously, we have got a manager currently going through the interview process. It is taking a bit of time just because they're busy. So it is when they're free, they're going for everything. But obviously, hopefully, we can get that new manager in. Otherwise, Neri will be in charge until then. And then the final move, I sort of forgot about this because it was about 2 weeks ago, but Emma Freeze, who was previously Ajax in Elite Managers Gameworlds and is in MENA. I think he's Zamalek manager, I can't think off the top of my head. He did leave Enugu Rangers, and then obviously in his place, Babajide has joined EMG Africa and taken them over. Is there any key managerial changes you want to discuss there, Joe? I imagine the Barcelona.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Pretty good one. A lot of managerial movements across the board. But then the big one, and here is stepping down from Barcelona. First, as a Barca fan, I'll say is a very good news. Considering that it's been a very long time, Barcelona has never won a title under Henry, so I think is a sign of relief for us. And then for him too, I think it's a good one. I think it was obviously a time for him to take a new challenge. He's been at Barcelona. He has had so many shots at the titles and all of that. So I think his time at Barca was very, very much overdue. And for me personally, I thought I think it was best for him to, take up another challenge and see if things will work out fine for him. So for me, even though that was a big one for him, that was a very bold one. I know so many managers who wouldn't be able to, step down, especially from a club like Barcelona. But yeah, he himself, I'm sure he must have self-examined himself and his performances with the club. Barca is a very big club, and it's expected that Barca should be up there contesting for the titles and winning the titles too. So I'm sure he had some self-examination and was so truthful to himself to say, okay, we haven't really been productive in this club, and maybe for one reason or the other, but then he just knew it was time for him to take up a new challenge. So I think for that, it's a bold one from him, and I just wish him the best in his new challenge. And then talking about the step up from a Division 4 manager, I think it goes a long way to tell every other manager in Division 4 that you have a chance. You have a chance to make it to the main game world. All you just need to do is be consistent, with your activity, be consistent in what you're doing, and definitely you must certainly have a chance to previous self at the main game world. So lots of managerial movements, but then just the major one being Barcelona, and then the step up for a manager from Division 2 to the main Division 4, sorry, to the main game world. So it's definitely fun. And then having this happening just at the start of a season, I think it gives also some freshness in the teams. Managers moving around, it now leaves room for a lot of freshness, a lot of refreshing, a lot of rebuilding in so many teams. So yeah, definitely it's a good one for me. Thank you.
Yeah, obviously with Division 4 guys, as Joe said, you just need to be consistent. As I say, I've said this multiple times, if you can do 50, 60 messages up to 100 messages consistently a month, you'll put yourself in a good place to get a job in main world. And obviously, they don't come up often because a lot of managers tend to make the 25, as the rules state, because obviously they want to keep their clubs. But when they do come up, and obviously a manager does, i.e., either leave the game world or doesn't make the 25, or as we know, and now with the update coming up in September, we are expecting a few guys to quit, just because they're not planning to get gold. I know MacD is mentioned obviously as one. McDonald Okorie, he isn't in a position to get gold. So there is obviously, and I imagine there'll be other clubs in main world, obviously as well as D4, that will be in that case. It is going to be a situation where if you're consistent and you're active, you're going to be in a position to maybe take one of those clubs, and if you're a gold as well, to take one of those clubs in main world. Obviously Joe and Lasarif last month were the main two that just missed out. But obviously, there's Cal Bailey, who's done pretty well. He's dropping about 40, 50 messages a month consistently. And then you've got obviously Sammy Crown, who's been here ages, who's in that 50, 60 range. Those guys, if they're going to keep it up, they'll get main world clubs. Obviously, now as well, we've got these newbies. Bird's Eye Views are returnee, so obviously he knows this game world, even though he was only here 3 months. He'll probably be up there with activity wise. He knows the guys, and then obviously it's going to be dependent on how Michael Uwamini does. Obviously he's going to settle in, and then obviously if Ben can pick up, when he got promoted, he had 70, 80 messages that month. If those guys can pick it up, and we'll have a real contest for Division 4 guys to get into main world. Obviously, the next topic would be the let's have a look. Obviously, just an update on the game worlds. So, obviously, we are currently Let me just get main world up first. That is glitched because that's Real Madrid, but it's showing the Africa table. So, after 4 games of the main world season, Division 1 in main world is led by Sani Hassan's PSG. Obviously, they won the treble last year, winning D1, the Champions Cup. Oh no, sorry, the doubles. They won D1 and the Champions Cup. Sani's had a good start. Did lose on Thursday to who did he lose to? Lazio with a bit of an upset. So they're a point ahead of newly promoted Dortmund, and 2 ahead of Atletico, Man City, and Arsenal. Atletico seems to have had a good start after a few below par seasons, especially after Jay took over from Dynest. Liverpool have had a poor start, along with AC Milan and newly promoted Inter. Um, it is been pretty well known. Fizz is a bit of a slow starter, and then tends to go on a run at the end of the season and finish around the Champions Cup spots. Usually just getting into the Champions Cup. But it is a obviously with the new trade deadline, it's something he might want to sort of pick up his form a bit to try and not be in a relegation fight. Division 2 is it's expected, to be honest. It is Barca and Real first and second. Me and GJ, both come down from Division 1 into Division 2. Real Betis down in fifth. Bit of a slow start for them. They're in the playoffs, but would have thought they would have been contending with the two El Clasico boys. And then obviously Villa one of mine and Joe's former clubs, had a slow, very poor start to the season. Only 1 point in 4 games. And then in Division 3, Vinny's Chelsea are top ahead of. There's quite a few teams, 7 teams on 7 points, all battling effectively joint second. And then obviously Moorshed's Crystal Palace are bottom with 1 point. Obviously, he's currently struggling to get into SM just because of what's going on in Bangladesh at the moment. And then in Division 4, we have got. Let me get that table up. So Joe is currently. So it's on 26 games, 4 games left of the season. Joe is currently first on 50 points ahead of Neris, Shakhtar Donetsk, who are on 45, with Rangers and Galatasaray also on 45, but behind on goal difference. I am last on 6 points because my team is just really young and we're long term, obviously, because I'm always going to be in Division 4. So it is a case of it being expected. And then if we look at Maina, we look at so in Division 1, Al Ahly, my old Al Ahly, who are now managed by Bojan, they're top of the Maina D1, ahead of Beersheba and Shabab Al Ahly, who are on 7 points in second and third. There's a big surprise is Al Shabab, the three-time previous winners of D1, are actually last on 1 point. Now, obviously, the Maina season only lasting 14 games, being an 8-team league. It can be a case that Al Shabab could win the league 3 times and get relegated, which would be quite wild, but you never know. They've got 10 games to save themselves. Division 2, I'm in first with Al Nassr. And then in Division 3, first place, Al Hilal. Vinny is having a great season in EMG currently. He's sitting in first in Division 3. And then finally, EMG Africa, we have we're 16 games into the season. It is just 6 games left of the season. It is a bit of a title fight between AS Vita and Enyimba, so that is Baraf and Femzo. Mamelodi Sundowns, who we'll mention a bit later, Gardens Harry's Cup, they've had quite a disappointing season, and it looks like now they'll be battling to just make Champions Cup. In Division 2, we have ASEC Mimosas, who are ahead of Orlando Pirates by a point. They're on 30 points. Jibril's looking for a back-to-back promotion, and obviously he's going to be looking to see trying to copy what he did with Al Shabab, bar for being bottom at the moment. In Maina with his Mimosas team. And then finally in Div 3, Arta Soler are a point ahead of the newly crowned EMG Africa Cup winners, Young Africans, with AFC Leopards in third. And that wraps up the league tables. Joe's actually just dropped me a message. Oh, yeah, obviously the big transfer which we missed, obviously happened today, and that was LeBron, the new Porto manager, has sold Karim Benzema to Sevilla for Romeo Lavia. Obviously, I know Joe's particularly mentioned his opinion on it today, but originally he agreed for Liam Delap and Oscar Alderson or something like that, plays at Copenhagen, but he sort of got a bit of flack for taking someone who had scored like 9 goals in the championship in the last 3 seasons, and a Danish league youngster for obviously a Benzema plays in Saudi Arabia, but he's still 94 for the time being, so it's still a good rating. And obviously he changed his mind, and Benzema is now going to Ajmal Sevilla, and Lavia is going to Porto. Now, Joe, what do you think of the Benzema deal?
Okay. Right from the moment the deal was announced, a whole lot of persons were giving their views, and some were for the deal, some were saying it was a nice deal, but most of the managers were like, "Wow, this is one hell of a deal. And yes, of course, just like every other deal that happens, even in real life, there's always criticism, and everybody wants to give their opinion about the deal. But for me, especially being a manager that loves building with a lot of youth. For me, I think it's a good deal, actually. Yes, he is losing some ratings, but then he is buying one for the future. And like I usually say, it only takes one good season. I mean, in real life, one good season for a player to, get that rating increase. So just like Lamine Yamal, he just had one good season with Barcelona, and look at we having him rated 89. Obviously, Lavia might not be having the same exact progression, but then he's just buying for the future. I'm sure that the Benzema will only be heading down. I mean, his ratings will only be, you know, hitting downwards. And I'm very sure that Benzema might not even be. I'm almost sure that he might not be playing for the next 3 years. Obviously, he might be retiring any moment. You know, so for me, I think it's a good investment, especially in a light game world where it's very difficult for you to, get a prospective youth that's playing in a club like Chelsea with chances of, making it. So for me, I think it was a good deal for LeBron, and I just like the fact that he's okay with it, and he doesn't want to listen to what any other person can say about it. So I know, yeah, on the short term, he's losing the ratings, which might have felt his immediate results as per in the log in his matches. But long term, I think it's for me. I think it's a good deal for him. If he can get someone who can possibly replace Benzema, and try as much as possible to get the same performance Benzema drops, week in week out for him, then on the long run, I think it's going to be a good deal for him.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I say it all the time is, if you're not winning anything, you may as well take risks to try and win later on down the line. I know Porto just won a Connect Cup, but obviously Connect Cups you can't base it off because it is unpredictable. But they weren't. They were coming seventh to ninth under James Young each year, and James is a good manager, so obviously that was where they were. So obviously, Favour come in and obviously thought I need to look long term, and instead of win now and suffer in a year's time and be in Division One with a load of red arrows, or remain in Division Two and get hit by red arrows. So obviously he's done the thing, sell Benzema, and obviously he's got Lavia, who obviously did play a lot last year because of injury and just selection, but obviously he is a talented player.
And then Greg, just to mention too, that was a very big and bold move too. Considering the fact that a whole lot of managers have to rely on the big ratings to get the results, and we have managers who are so much addicted to the big ratings that if you look at their teams, all their players are hitting the red, the red arrows. All their players are hitting the red arrows. You know, nobody wants to lose, the big ratings. But here we have a manager who is bold enough to, ship out the big rated player just to invest in the future. So it was a very big and bold move. Yes, a lot of persons might not favor his move, but trust me, it shows that he has the balls to ship out the
Yeah,
players, especially when he thinks that their time is off in the game. So that was another bold one for him too. And I just wish him the best. I just wish him that Lavia can have just that one spectacular season, and he reaps off the reward of that move. It's all about taking the risk. Actually, it's all about taking the risk. It's so if you can take the risk and invest in that player who you believe is going to make it, then why not take the risk? And I remember when I was at Betis, I know I said that Lavia was going to be the next
oh, Joe's cut out then. So yeah, obviously it is obviously a big risk, but you don't win things if you don't take risks. I know Joe was going to say,
yeah, Greg.
oh, yeah, he's back.
I'm back. So yeah, I'm back. So I also remember when I did a deal with you at Aston Villa when I left when I let Dybala leave. I think for 4 players. I think
Yeah,
there were just like 4 lower rated players, and I don't know. I guess some of them, went on to, well, I don't know how they panned out, but that was a risk too. I was willing to take it. And, so for me, it's all about taking the risk. It's all about investing in the future because on the long run, it's the way I'm seeing the market going. It's going to be risky, it's going to be difficult for you to buy youth because trust me, the managers that are coming, they're going to be investing in youth. And the moment I step into the main game world, my first line of investment is going to be on the youth
yeah,
because Elite Managers Gameworld is going further and further and further. There's continuity in the game world. It's not stopping anytime soon. So if I'm able to find the players now that they are still young, it means that on the long run I'm going to reap the rewards. And I have to dictate how I sell them or how I keep them in my team. So for me, it's all about risk, and I play a part that way for LeBron.
yeah. Obviously, we mentioned the Dybala move. Two of those players were Martinelli and Pau Torres. So obviously they have Martinelli, especially is
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. So it is a risk, and another risky move that didn't pay off for me was me swapping Alvarez for when I was at Villa for Adeyemi, who was with Nery's Barcelona at the time, thinking, oh, Alvarez never played in Europe. Those are South Americans don't make Europe. Yeah, went on to win the
Wow.
World Cup, and he's in '92, and Adeyemi is being linked to play for Nigeria because he can't make the Germany squad. So that's dead.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, on to the next topic then is let's have a look. We have so obviously we had the Connect Cups that were sort of taking place when we had started the last podcast last month. Obviously the three Connect Cups that have been a thing for the last year, just under 8 months. Obviously, the new winners were PSG, who managed to beat Al Ahly, Bojan's Al Ahly in the Champions Cup final. Obviously, the defending champions Arsenal, they got to the semis and lost to PSG on penalties. In the Challenge Cup, we had Al Duhail, who from Maine managed to beat Borussia Mönchengladbach in the final. And obviously in the Cup Winners' Cup final, Neri yet again lost, a bit like England, exact same results as England in the Euros, lost the April final on penalties, like England did in Euro 2021. And then in this final, lost 2-1 to Porto, like England lost 2-1 to Spain a couple of weeks ago. Um, you can see why people call him Neri Southgate. He's
And Harry deserves a title for the number of finals he has lost, or number of titles he has lost. Honestly,
he has won two Mainer Cup finals in Mainer Game World, but other than that, Main World Game Worlds or Connect Cups, and he hasn't even got anywhere in Africa. He got to finals and just lost so many of them. Or he's come second to Bojan so many times. It's just that man's jinxed. But yeah, James Young's Porto managing favour Akamadi's squad because obviously James had left Porto during the tournament. Um, Won the Cup Winners' Cup, upsetting Raja, who are one of the best teams in MENA. Mary also did get to the semis in Cup Winners with Kano Pillars from Africa, and they were the furthest that EMG Africa team got in that tournament. Maybe next year his third time lucky and he wins a Connect Cup, but who knows? So yeah. So obviously we've briefly mentioned transfers, but obviously we have got some questions. Well, we've got two questions. One of them we sort of mentioned earlier, and that is about the trade deadline and what happens if a player gets to level 2 when the window is closed. I'll answer this one. So the window is designed to be after the update. So this is a great thing of being an admin in COPs with Pane. Pane always knows when the updates are happen. They always happen between game wheel, roughly in EMG would be game wheel 10 and 13, 12. So if they happen, say, match day 12, you would have a week to sell them before the deadline. So that's plenty of time to sell a player external, or trade a player external for another player, to get them out of your team. So it's those deadlines. Obviously, we did think about doing it later in the season, but a couple of people, mainly Fizz, um, wanted it earlier. So obviously it's a trial by basis, I think, anyway. So if it doesn't work, we would push it later next season. But yeah, that's been designed and thought of with the concerns rules in mind. That we need players to sell their level 2 concerns before they're blocked. So we thought of that. Now, Joe, you'll probably guess who's answered this question because he's one of the biggest trolls in EMG. I want managers to shame managers of big teams and relegate like Barcelona so much that they leave their club and look for a new challenge. Next in line would be Liverpool, Fizz, Benfica, Saskid, and Al Shabab Jibril. Now, I wonder who's asked that question.
Okay. I think one of the reasons why Henry stood down from Barcelona was because of you know the public, and of course the public. Everybody was talking about him and how he hasn't been succeeding at Barca. And for me, I think it's just it's just normal. When you are in a big club, you're expected to perform. You're expected to bring in results. So you can't be managing teams like Barcelona, Liverpool, and you are not turning in results. You can't be managing teams like Man City, especially where you have the supposed squad to at least to bring in a result, and you are not turning in results. It's definitely the fans, the public will definitely call you out. So I wouldn't mind. For me, I don't think it's bad if you are managing a big club and you have the right players, you have the right resources in your team, and you're not bringing in the results. You are relegating with such big teams. Come on, that's nothing wrong if the public calls you out. Of course, that's what makes you a manager. It's a job that comes with a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
That's why you're in the team. You are there to bring in results. So if you don't bring in results, trust me, the public will come calling, and you don't just have you don't just have an excuse, especially when you have the squad. Yeah, I understand when managers are building their team, they're trying to build the team, they're trying to refreshing the team a bit. Yeah, that's understandable, especially those that have to bring in lower rated players, for the sake of building for the future. But then when you have the squad, you have the ratings, you have the right players, and see that you're not turning in results, you're not bringing in titles, I'll personally be coming to call out on you. So
Yeah.
for other managers who are in the big teams, you have to step up. It's just that's what the job comes with. You have to step up. You have to bring the results. If you're managing Liverpool, come on, bring in the results. And if you're managing Madrid and the likes, come on, you bring in results. That's what the game is for.
Yeah, and obviously one of the clubs mentioned there has sort of got a bit of flack the last year or so, more and more, and that is Benfica. Obviously Saskid has been at Benfica since the start of EMG, which is nearly 4 years now, and has probably one of the strongest teams in the game world, and has had one season in Division One where he got relegated, and every other season has been in Division Two. So I can see my managers are saying, well, maybe some people should look for a new challenge. Fizz has sort of been a bit average. I wouldn't say below average, but average the last few seasons. He's sort of been hovering between. I've jokingly called him Arsene Wenger from like 2007 to like 2017, where they just every year just qualify for the Champions League. He does just qualify for the Champions Cup and gets knocked out first round every year. Um, but you know, he he's he's it's going to get to a point where PSG get droppers. Ren will probably get a few droppers. He would be in a position there to potentially challenge based off other teams around him. I mean, Atletico have underperformed the last 2 years under Jay. They've never really got to the levels that 9S had them years ago. But it's just the way the game world is. Division One's hard. As someone who's managed all but 3 seasons or 4 seasons in Division One, it is incredibly hard, especially nowadays. It's not. It's it's the quality in there is a lot higher than it previously was. And I think, you're seeing guys take smaller clubs into Division One and compete and even keep them up. So, it's tough to be Division One. But obviously, Nerry squad shouldn't have got relegated last year. That was shocking. Um, with all those players. So yeah. Um, Obviously, I will briefly, as one final thing. Obviously, we have got the ongoing the Sir Harry's Cup, which is the Connect Cup between EMG, MENA, Africa, Vroot Game World, Top of Cops, and Nigerian Premier League, or also known as MPL. The semi-finals were today, and obviously I was going to give congratulations to Babajide's Barcelona now, as they are in the final of that, and will face Juventus from Vroot. Now, Vroot Game World is a game world without a squad cap, and there are clubs in there which have 93 to 95 ratings on SM. It is going to be tough, but Gido's done well to get that far. He, one more game, just needs to win 1-0. I mean, win the tournament. And obviously as well, Dan Taylor's Inter Milan and Eero Senin as Mamelodi Sundowns. They both made the semi-finals. Amazing for Sundowns, especially with Africa having a 90 rating, max rating. We all thought they were going to struggle against, especially the Vroot teams. But as they prove in the EMG Connect Cups, they perform. They can go up against the big boys and get a result. Mamelodi Sundowns beaten Elite Managers Gameworld teams, Cops teams, and a Vroot team just to get to the semi-finals. So fair dues, Zero. You've done well there with that team to get that far, especially with a lot better clubs in that tournament. You've done Africa well and you've done EMG well. So fair play, mate. You've deserved to get to the semis. But yeah, hopefully next year. Um, I think we're gonna obviously there'll be the Saharis Cup will be renewed for another year in a couple of months' time. We will obviously look to bring in some new game worlds into the fold. I know NCC, which is Harry's Godsense League, which Joe's in. Um, they're going to be taking part in it next year. We'll probably look to see if we can get some other WhatsApp IDs game worlds into the fold, and get 6 or 7 or even 8 game modes competing for one tournament, and hopefully then it'll be good for promotional for all of us. Okay, I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
that
that would be.
yep,
Uh, okay, before you call it a wrap, I guess that's what you're about to do, right?
yep,
Okay, just a last comment. Just in case you're listening to this and you are not yet in the Elite Game World, uh, and you think you're a best manager, you think you're a good manager, I think this is your best shot to join the game world. Starting from Division 4, come prove yourself, come show us what you've got to do, come show us how you're the best, compete against the very best, make it to the main game world and prove yourself. Right? So just in case you're listening to this and you're not already in the Elite game world, so just take that step. Prove yourself against the very best. Thank you.
yeah. So that'll be mainly the main and Africa guys who aren't in main world. If you want to join. We will have spots available probably next month. Take them. This is the main world is the main active game world. Africa and main are side worlds. They relaxation game worlds. They're not messaging 1,000 times a day. They are game worlds with SM priority more than WhatsApp. If you want to prove yourself against the elite, and be an active game world, and not just SM, but football or just generic game world, EMG's the place for you. Okay, thank you for joining me today, Joe. And hopefully we can. Oh, Babajida's actually typing now. Hopefully we can should be able to get another one in a couple of weeks' time. Seasons progress a bit more.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, I'll just end the recording.